So things are heating up even faster in the Straits of Hormuz, specifically today, with Iran test firing a new Sayed 3G naval air defense missile that, they don't have 5G? Man, they're like back in 1995. But it blasted off of what they say was one of their new shiny corvettes. No, we're not talking about the Ayatollah's midlife crisis corvette. We're talking about a naval corvette, and Iran is claiming that it can throw up a 93-mile protective bubble around the actual corvette that's shooting it, and they're saying that it could target US jets and drones with ease. Of course they're going to say that, but this comes as President Trump has given Tehran a tight 10 to 15 day window to cut a nuclear deal or face bad things. And yeah, the US has surged 2 carrier groups, stealth fighters, the biggest military buildup that we've seen in over 2 decades, with Iran vowing, and this is a quote from their president, to not bow to the US and continuously threatening to shut down the Straits of Hormuz. And that is a big part of what this play is with that Sayed 3, which they claim to be hypersonic, which we'll get to here in a second, whether it's hypersonic or not. I'll be breaking down the specs behind that missile, but here's some more breaking news before we go on. Iran's leader entrusts security chief to run country in case of war assassination. Khamenei has instructed Ali Larijani and a number of close political and military aides to ensure survival of the state if the US launches attacks. So smart move, but it begs the question, how radicalized is the inner circle? Likely very radicalized. However, who knows? At this point, there might be some cracks forming, and my opinion is that a lot of those cracks could be forming in the actual army of Iran itself, not necessarily in the IRGC, which is incredibly radicalized. But at this point, we don't know. We don't know if someone in that inner circle actually sees the writing on the wall that the Iranian regime is likely finished. Today, there are fresh protests in Iran, more protests happening on college campuses with students screaming death to Khamenei. Obviously, most of the people in Iran want freedom, and now this is another big push from the young, educated population of Iran, basically standing up to the radical extremists saying that they're done. Stick around to the end of the video for a wild hypothetical scenario on what could happen should things spiral into a full-on naval showdown with this Sayed 3. So let's break it down real quick. Sayed 3 is the naval version of Iran's land-based Sayed 3 surface-to-air missile system, first tested on land in 2026 with about a 75-mile range. This is the sea-launched variant, and Iran is saying that it can push its range out to about 93 miles using vertical launch tubes on different naval assets. Like we've talked about in previous videos, Iran wants to get this on the smallest boats possible, and their goal would be to have a swarm of these things that can all launch these different missiles at the carrier, and they believe that it has the ability to go out and strike it. They fired this one from the Shahid Sayed Shirazi, a catamaran-style Shahed Soleimani class corvette. Fast, stealthy-ish, and packed with anti-ship missiles already. This is just the next level of anti-ship missiles that Iran is showing off. The IRGC Navy ran this during their smart control of the Strait of Hormuz drills, basically flexing that they can now layer air defenses over their fleet in the narrow waters. And that's their whole goal, is to protect that fleet if they should shut down the Straits of Hormuz, basically keeping themselves from getting strafed or bombed with JDAMs. But this isn't just a test, in my opinion. It's Iran saying we can protect our ships and deny you easy access all around the Straits of Hormuz and the coast of Iran. So with the extended range, this is like the Ayatollah got a you-know-what implant, but we all know this is still not getting the job done. It's just going to be awkward now when the Ayatollah wears sweatpants. So I think it's pretty clear at this point that warfare is changing at warp speeds. Drones, AI, next generation gear, but tactics and procurement, that can still be crawling. That's why Battle Lab exists. It's not some gear show or tactical flex. Look at us guys, we're awesome. No, it's raw force on force free play that slams emerging tech and real world methods into brutal scenarios, exposing what actually works before lives are on the line. line. Two teams of elite tactical pros go head to head. This show is by Reveal in partnership with Jedok, streaming on Vet TV right now. It's non-sterile environments where failure hits hard and early so that you can learn from sweat and not blood on the battlefield. Battle Lab is streaming exclusively on Vet TV. Go watch it right now at the link in the description and use code MAX for a special discount. This is a show that's fun to watch but could also save lives downrange. I can't recommend this show enough. Go check them out. You'll be glad that you did. But before we dive deeper into the threat picture here, let's get the specs straight on this Syed-3 missile, which Iran claims to be hypersonic. So reports are pegging its top speed at around somewhere between Mach 4.5 to 5.5. So to technically be hypersonic, it needs to be sustained flight above Mach 5. So if the missile goes and touches Mach 5 and then goes back down into the Mach 4, Mach 3 range, it's kind of a slouch at that point. What, only Mach 3? Really? You can't sustain Mach 5, Ayatollah? I guess you do need that little blue pill when it comes to your missiles. So to sustain Mach 5 takes very advanced technology for hypersonics, which Russia has, China has, the US has that actual technology been integrated into some of the booster systems of these missiles? It looks like it hasn't at this point. It looks like Russia and China are probably saving those stockpiles for themselves. However, a Mach 3 plus missile, let's say it touches Mach 5 and then comes back down to Mach 3, that's no slouch, and you actually have to make sure that you're defending against it. But open assessments are pegging the top speed closer to Mach 4.5. Its range probably is somewhere around that 93 miles, and in the Straits of Hormuz, that very tight area, that can actually be a real threat. Interception altitudes, they claim to be 18 to 19 miles in the air, so very hard to overfly the interception range of this. So it does exhibit some characteristics of a hypersonic missile, but I don't think we could technically call this thing hypersonic if we're basing it on sustained flight of Mach 5, but the altitudes do scream a very capable missile. Advanced maneuverability is usually also a part of a hypersonic glide missile or vehicle or scramjet propulsion for true hypersonic regimes, which it looks like this Syed-3 series doesn't exactly have. But Iran has other options as well. Like they have that Fatah ballistic missile, which can get up to speeds Mach 13 to 15. So obviously no slouch there. This Syed-3 would likely not be classified as hypersonic at this point because it lacks the sustained hypersonic characteristics and the maneuverability or the heat resistant materials that make hypersonics so hard to intercept. And that's why with those Fatah missiles, they were so hard to intercept when they were launching them at Tel Aviv. But that said, Iran's IRGC Navy isn't playing around, and the Syed-3G is the star of their show right now, which they think can protect them against F-35s, F-22s, F-15Es, and F-16s. It's a solid fuel vertically launched SAM that can launch from those smaller ships, which they also think can go out and hit AWACSs, can hit advanced drones like the Global Hawk, cruise missiles. They think it can hit all those different things, and they think it gives their corvettes real area defense in the straits with overlapping bubbles that could force a US strike package to stay further out or burn more electronic warfare and fuel further away and complicate the targeting problem. They've probably also got dozens of decoys, so dozens of these corvettes that don't actually have these weapons on them, maybe even drone corvettes that aren't manned, that are out there. They look like a swarm, but there's kind of this dumb drone swarm going out trying to distract and draw in fire. But their top three other missiles that stand out would be the Nor family, which is an anti-ship cruise missile that is a sea-skimming derivative of the Chinese C-802 with ranges of about 105 nautical miles. Those use mobile coastal launchers that can hide in trucks or pop up from different islands for surprise salvo hits. Second, the Ghadir Qadar upgrades longer-legged versions, push it to about 186 miles or more, still low flying to evade radar, and they think it's perfect for saturating ship defenses from hidden islands or shoreline spots. Third, they've got anti-ship ballistic variants like the Kahir Fars, and that's based on the Fatah 110 that we talked about earlier, but at this point, Iran is flexing harder than North Korea with their missile talk. It's essentially like the Ayatollah got into a you-know-what measuring contest with Kim Jong-un. So some key takeaways on what Iran's doing with this brinksmanship and with this propaganda. This is their first real sea-based long-range vertical launch defense play, and they're doing it with all these different operations in the Straits of Hormuz because they're trying to put pressure on President Trump, the negotiation, the West, saying that they can shut down the flow of oil to everyone. That's their whole goal. They're trying to say to the F-35s, the F-22s, the different advanced drones, you can't come in here and we own the Straits of Hormuz. That's their number one play right now, and they think that gives them the most leverage when it comes to these negotiations. They're basically that ex at this point that just freaks out anytime you even get close to their phone. Why were you touching my phone? I mean, your alarm was going off. I was trying to silence it. And then they freak out for the rest of the day. Anybody else been there? A quick highlight on the Ayatollah's midlife crisis corvette. I mean, the naval corvette of the IRGC. It's about 200 feet long, twin hull design for speed and stability, vertical launch cells, a specific design for that Sayed 3G, plus anti-ship missiles. It's part of Iran's push for asymmetric naval power, smaller, fast, hard to hit platforms that can swarm or defend in confined waters like the Straits of Hormuz. Also, many radars on that thing that are used to detect and target air and sea assets that they believe can talk effectively to that Sayed 3G missile and actually guide it onto a US carrier. That's the level of capability that they think this missile actually has. To counter this, US carriers will likely stay a decent amount away, whatever that range is, to stay away from that weapon while they figure out how to strike it. Joint air-to-surface standoff missiles would be a great option, and then Growlers jamming the area, basically suppressing all the different radars that are on those corvettes, and then keeping an eye on what these corvettes are doing as well, because they're not just there to launch missiles. They're likely dropping mines, mining certain parts of the Straits of Hormuz, and at this point, it's area denial that Iran is focused on, so you have to bump up ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, to counter any nasty little tricks they might have up their sleeve. Let's move to a section I like to call 4D chess, and obviously it makes me feel really important to say 4D chess, but this is Iran showing strength to try to deter. In the art of war, they say you should appear weak when actually strong, but this is Iran doing the opposite. They're trying to deter, and to me, now with the Ayatollah basically creating the succession plan, it's kind of like the writing is on the wall. Trump's ultimatum is maximum pressure for diplomacy, but it looks like at this point, instead of actually coming to the table with anything useful, the Ayatollah, the inner workings of the president of Iran, the IRGC, they're putting all their energy towards regime survival instead of putting energy towards actual good faith talks. So at this point, I kind of feel like we're negotiating and getting financial advice from Bernie Madoff. There's really no off-ramp at this point that it looks like the regime is going to take, so that probably makes strikes more likely. However, it could be limited strikes, could be limited to the nuclear sites, and it really depends on what the transition for Iran could look like. Is the army able to help stand up to the IRGC while those inner workings are figured out? Maybe a top member of the IRGC would actually believe in his country and come to the table trying to create a better life for the millions of people there. If that were the case, maybe we would see this take place sooner than later. But if there isn't someone to step in and take that place, we could see this draw out for months. And exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi is obviously a very important figure here, stepping in for at least some sort of transitional government. Reza Pahlavi was a former fighter pilot, so obviously everything he does is going to be perfect. But seriously, the amazing amount of support we're seeing for Reza Pahlavi around the globe, I think it speaks very well to him coming in and at least helping create that democratic transition in Iran should things go down. So let's say in a hypothetical situation, Iranian fast boats blast towards a carrier strike group near the Straits of Hormuz. Tensions spike, shots are fired from both sides, and a miscalculation means that now we're in an all-out naval conflict. So at that point, Iran is going to try to use that Shahed missile to shoot down US air assets, first likely trying to strike down any advanced drones like the RQ-4 Global Hawk, and then even trying to go after F-15s and F-16s, any fourth generation fighters that they can actually see. So now at this point, the Aegis ship system launches into overdrive and starts to strike down any of those missiles going up trying to take down the RQ-4 Global Hawk. At this point, it would be full-blown escalation, and now it would just be the US peppering those strike boats to keep them from shutting down the Straits of Hormuz, basically playing playing whack-a-mole 24/7 with F-18 sorties blasting off of the different carriers in the region to keep the straits open. Obviously, there would be a short shutdown for a while. So wrapping this all up, guys, Syed 3G test, serious step up for Iran in their naval denial game, perfectly timed into the nuclear talks that are going on right now, and the Ayatollah planning his succession, basically planning the line of Dr. Evils that will take his place should he be removed from his position. What do you guys think? Do you think that this new Shahed 3G is a game changer for Iran? Do you think we'll see hostilities go down in the next couple weeks? Let me know in the comments below. Go ahead and follow me on X, follow me on Instagram. I'm posting there pretty much every day, and click the link in the description if you want to join the Max Ready Room and see a live from me every week. I'll see you on that live, and I'll see you on this next video that pops up right here. This is Ryan, also known as Max Afterburner, signing off.